For Sinister Trespassing Tales, revelations of 12 terrifying encounters with the haunted unknown. Jason could feel it in the air, a heaviness that pressed against his chest. He looked out into the night from his porch in Riverton, where shadows danced just beyond the reach of the streetlight. This wasn't the quiet suburb he once loved, it felt more like a waiting trap. He shook his head, trying to brush off the dread. Just the pressure of the upcoming night shift, he reasoned. That thought flickered, however, as he remembered the whispers that had been lurking around. Whispers his wife, Emily, claimed to hear, dark, menacing whispers that made her pull their daughter, Lily, closer each night. In recent weeks, the mood had changed in Riverton. It wasn't just Emily and Lily. The neighbors, once friendly faces sharing BBQs and gossip, now avoided eye contact. The porch lights flickered ominously at twilight like signals for something sinister. As he tightened his grip on the railing, Jason recalled the peculiar incidents, objects shifting out of place, eerie shadows darting past their windows, each one more troubling than the last. What was happening to their home? When Jason left for work, he cast a glance back at the house. Its warm glow brought temporary comfort, but the boundary between safety and the unknown was razor-thin. By the time he clocked in, the oppressive weight of his worries anchored every step. He replayed Emily's words in his mind, "It feels like something is watching us." But tonight would be different. He felt it, a shift as if something had awakened. During a break, his hands trembled around his coffee cup as a persistent siren echoed in his ears, making it hard to breathe. Something wasn't right. His thoughts raced back home, where Emily and Lily were now more than ever in the line of danger. Those familiar silhouettes were slipping into shadows of fear. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. When he returned, the foreboding feeling escalated to panic. The front door was ajar, swinging gently, inviting him into the mouth of a darkness he couldn't shake. Cold dread seeped into him like fog, wrapping around his heart and squeezing. "Emily? Lily?" A choking silence was the only response. As he stepped inside, every creak of the floorboards felt like a scream. The air was thick with an unsaid horror. He moved to the living room, where a chill slithered down his spine. He noticed something on the coffee table, a symbol etched into a piece of paper, the same sketches that Marcus, Lily's new friend, had mentioned. Things aren't right. Suddenly, a whisper floated through the air, sweet and sinister, beckoning him from just beyond the backyard. The weight of betrayal surged in his chest. Had the neighbors known all along? Did they gather for something other than community? With a heart racing and knees trembling, Jason stood at the threshold, preparing to confront the unfathomable. Would this lead him back to safety or deeper into a darkness he couldn't escape? As the night closed in, shadows writhed, just waiting for him to step outside. Jason hesitated, every fiber of his being screaming to turn back. The whisper, a cold caress weaving through the air, pressed against him like fingers tracing his spine. Curiosity, fear, and a desperate need to protect his family battled within him. He stepped outside, the night air wrapping around him like a shroud. The backyard was a labyrinth of shadows. The trees loomed, twisted branches reaching high as if trying to ward off dark forces. As he moved forward, dirt crunched beneath him, each step echoing the pounding of his heart. The whisper intensified, growing almost melodic, and yet it carried an undercurrent of menace. Jason had beckoned, sweet yet dissonant, a sound laced with malice. "Mom! Dad!" The voice was so pure, a desperate call for help. It was Lily. His stomach twisted, panic clawing at his insides. She was out here? The darkness scattered his resolve, leaving only the need to find her. "I'm coming!" he shouted, forcing his way through the thick, tangled shadows, but she wasn't in the immediate area. He felt the shadows close in around him, like a living thing intent on swallowing him whole. The whisper morphed into giggles, childlike and hollow, echoing through the trees. "Jason, come play." Where was Emily? Turning sharply, he sprinted toward the house, breathless. "Emily!" he shouted, voice cracking. The door he had left ajar still gaped at him, and he plunged back inside. The living room felt colder now, a stark contrast to the pulsing dread outside. His eyes scanned the room, looking for any sign of his wife. The coffee table symbol flickered in his peripheral vision, now pulsing with an eerie light, almost like it was alive. Had it changed? He stepped closer, beads of sweat rolling down his back, mind racing. Some part of him knew he shouldn't touch it, but the pull was overwhelming. Was this a key? Was it a warning? A distant thud broke the silence, jolting him from his thoughts. "Lily?" he called again, dread curling like smoke in his chest. A low groan echoed from the hallway, deep and mournful, sending a jolt through him. He took a steadying breath and moved toward the sound, each footfall ringing ominously in the stillness, the shadows seeming to stretch toward him. He paused at the hallway's edge, the darkness beyond swallowing every flicker of light. "Emily! Where are you?" Silence was heavy, wrapping around him like an oppressive veil. Anxiety gnawed at him. Then, suddenly, he saw her. Emily was standing at the end of the hallway, back to him, her silhouette framed by the dim light of the kitchen. Relief surged through him, but it was quickly eclipsed by a wave of confusion. "Emily?" What? Before he could finish, a hand shot up in warning, her body tense, her head tilting slightly, like she was listening for something beyond his comprehension. Then came the whisper again, rising, sharper, drowning out everything else. It beckoned both of them now, a siren call filled with promises that twisted his stomach. Jason swallowed hard, dread overtaking him once more as he whispered, "Emily, what is it?" She turned around slowly. The look on her face sent ice through his veins, eyes wide and glassy, her mouth slightly parted in an unnatural way. And then Jason saw it. She was no longer alone at the end of the hallway. Shadows nestled around her feet, gathering like dark clouds preparing for a storm. "What have you done?" he gasped, taking a step back. Fear shot through him like a current. The darkness had a presence, lingering, grinning like a twisted smile. Jason's heart raced. They were trapped in this housing nightmare together, and then, as if sensing his fear, a voice slithered from the depths of the shadows. "Join us," it whispered, promising treachery hidden beneath a facade of sweet relief. The weight of imminent danger seemed to close around him, suffocating all hope. Jason swallowed but couldn't speak. With dread thrumming through his chest, he realized the whispers were calling not only to him but to the ones he cherished the most. What was he willing to sacrifice to protect Emily and Lily? The shadows shifted, expanding, awaiting his decision like a predator. But before he could choose, the walls around him began to shudder, and an unbearable scream erupted from the darkness, shaking the very foundation of their home. Who would survive this night? And what horrors had they awakened? The scream pierced the air, slicing through the heavy silence with a terrifying clarity. It echoed off the walls, a torment that seemed to rattle Jason's very bones. He recoiled, heart racing, lungs desperate for air. The shadows roared, twisting and writhing like a living creature. They were closing in. "Emily!" he yelled, but the word felt hollow, lost in the chaos. He couldn't see her face anymore, only dark tendrils clinging to her. No, not her! Panic surged through him, sharp and electrifying. "Get away from her!" he commanded, but as soon as the words left his mouth, the darkness exploded with laughter, a chilling chorus, mocking his resolve. The air thickened with an ancient, stale odor, tinged with decay. Jason's hand trembled as he reached for the wall, desperate for something solid. The floor felt unnaturally unstable beneath him. A deep sense of dread coiled tighter, each breath heavier than the last. "Jason, help me!" It was Lily's voice, softer now, yet still laced with urgency. He spun toward the sound, heart hammering. "I'm here!" he called back, but his own voice sounded strange, as if it belonged to someone else. A flickering light caught his eye from the living room. It came from the coffee table, pulsing in time with his erratic heartbeat steady, unrelenting. Was it summoning him? An instinct, a primal urge, pulled him toward it. He sensed movement behind him, and suddenly, Emily was gone. The shadows had consumed her. No! He lunged back, but the darkness coiled tighter, holding him in a grip that felt like ice. A surge of adrenaline spurred him forward. He had to reach her. He ripped through the shadows, his breath ragged with fear. As he stumbled into the living room, the pulsing light brightened, illuminating swirling shapes that danced on the walls, distorted faces, twisted and contorted in pain. Churning shadows bore witness to his horror, like a grotesque gallery of the damned. But the coffee table was different. As he approached, it didn't just flicker, it began to resonate with a soft hum, almost melodic. He could feel it in his chest. The energy danced in the air, a magnetic pull urging him closer. Jason, please! The sound was now coming from everywhere. Each whisper was a fragment of Emily's voice, intermingled with Lily's. He could feel despair wrapping around him like barbed wire, each piece of their voices slicing deeper. He shook his head to clear his thoughts. The light on the coffee table revealed flickering images of space caught between worlds, moments of joy, fear, laughter, and shadows. They didn't belong here, this wasn't their reality, yet Jason felt an inexplicable sense of longing. Help us, Jason! The chorus surrounded him. The walls pulsed with echoing laughter, but behind them, he sensed something darker pooling. It wasn't only a call for help, it felt like an invitation into the abyss. He fought against it, heart pounding, instincts screaming to resist. But as he glanced back toward the hallway, the darkness shifted again. It was hungry, waiting. Then he saw a figure, Emily. No longer ensnared by shadows, her face was lit by the same horrifying glow. She smiled, but not her usual warmth was behind it. It was a sinister expression, one that made his blood run cold. Join us, she said, voice layered with the haunting whispers. Let the darkness in. Jason couldn't breathe, dread clawing at his throat. He was teetering on the edge of a precipice, grappling with grim possibilities. Could he truly save them? Could he fight the shadows? In that instant, a loud crash echoed behind him, snapping him from his paralysis. He spun around. The shadows surged forward, expanding like a tidal wave, and he realized, with gut-wrenching clarity, that he was running out of time. What had they awakened? What was lurking just beyond the veil of darkness, eager to claim them all? Jason made his choice, heart racing against the stifling grip of fear, breaking free to make a stand. And yet, as he charged toward the only source of light in that oppressive gloom, he couldn't shake the chilling thought: what if the darkness wasn't meant to be fought, but embraced? He could feel the shadows lapping at his heels. But every movement felt like stepping off a cliff into uncertainty. Were they truly fighting for their lives, or were they years just pawns in a game much greater and more sinister? The pulsating light from the coffee table surged brighter, illuminating Jason with an eerie glow. He hesitated, caught between fleeing the encroaching shadows and stepping into the radiance that felt like it was pulling him deeper into darkness. Echoes of both Emily and Lily cried out, dissonant and haunting, weaving through his mind like an unnerving melody. Jason, please! Their pleas melded into a chorus so desperate it made him shudder. He stumbled backward, heart racing. The laughter from the shadows crashed over him like a wave, each beckoning note a reminder of what he was losing. He could feel the heat radiating from the darkness, close enough to smell the rotting essence it emitted, a reminder of death itself. No! He cried, shaking his head violently. Cold sweat dripped down his back. He couldn't let them sink into the abyss. But how do you fight something so intangible, so inevitable? Nearby, the images swirling in the light shifted again, displaying scenes of people, families, friends frozen in fear, faces twisted in agony. An unsettling thought pierced through Jason's fog of panic. What if they became like those figures? He moved closer to the coffee table, driven by desperation despite every instinct screaming against it. The table seemed to pulse with the rhythm of his own heart, drawing him into its orbit like a moth to flame. Join us, Emily's voice morphed, echoing through the room as the shadows hissed around him. Her smile flitted across his mind again, sharp and sickening, a demonic invitation. He gritted his teeth and pressed forward. He had to find a way to save them. However, the darkness around him swelled, rhythmic and relentless. A sudden realization hit him. What if the light wasn't his salvation? What if it held the key to their undoing? Each step felt heavier, as if the world itself was pressing down on him. He glanced back toward the hallway, nothing but a void, a black hole where he once saw Emily. Bile rose in his throat as he thought of her lost within the tendrils of darkness. A new scream clawed its way to his lips, but he swallowed it down, fighting it back. "Lily!" he yelled, a spark of clarity piercing through his panic. "I'll save you!" With that declaration, he lunged toward the coffee table, intent on understanding the source of its hum. The flickering images spun out of control, flashing memories, glimpses of laughter abruptly halted, and moments filled with shadows. They twisted into grotesque configurations, an almost sarcastic display of joy turned to horror. Suddenly, the warmth of the light took on a sharp edge, as if it were alive. The sensation coursed through him now, vibrating in his bones. He felt a pull, magnetic, almost seductive. What was he becoming part of in that moment? His hand touched the surface, and an explosion of energy coursed through him. Visions bombarded his mind: Emily, Lily, their laughter, then shadowy hands clasping them, drawing them down into something terrible. It was all too much. "Jason!" A voice jolted him. It didn't belong to either of them. A shadow emerged from the corner of the room, tall, cloaked, features indistinguishable, but there was an undeniable presence. "You've gone too far," it whispered, voice like gravel on glass. The room felt like it was closing in. A shiver ran down Jason's spine. Who was this new force, and what did it mean for his friends? As the shadow stepped closer, Jason backed away instinctively. It was time to make a decision: fight, or succumb to that alluring darkness. The room ignited with chaotic energy as shadows and light clashed. With each beat of his heart, Jason realized he was slipping toward an abyss of no return. But what if this shadow held the answers he sought? What if it was not merely an enemy but something more? The questions spiraled through him, racing faster than he could process. He had only fleeting moments before the darkness consumed everything. Would he be able to unravel the truth before it was too late? As the shadow lunged, Jason braced for impact, greeted by the chilling thought: what horrors awaited him beyond this choice? The air crackled like static as the shadow lunged, an impossible mass of darkness reaching for Jason. He barely managed to dodge, adrenaline surging as he stumbled back. The chill enveloped him, gnawing at the edges of his sanity, but he couldn't let panic take the reins. The sound of laughter echoed in his ears again, haunting, taunting, a reminder of how close he was to losing everything. "Get away from me!" Jason shouted, voice hoarse with fear. He pushed against the firm edge of the coffee table, feeling the pulsing energy grip his fingertips. It no longer felt like light. It was a sickly warmth, like a heartbeat echoing in a tomb. He glanced around, searching for an escape, but the room twisted, distorting space and reality. Images from the coffee table morphed into grotesque scenes, expectant shadows dancing across the walls. Faces he recognized became twisted and wretched. His heart raced at the thought that those could be Emily and Lily. He had to hold on. "Jason!" the whisper curled around him, like smoke trying to tug him into a deeper void. It was Emily's voice, but it felt wrong, warped and beckoning. "Join us!" "No!" He pulled away, hands shaking. "I want tea!" The shadow lunged again, and a cold hand caught Jason's wrist. A wave of despair washed over him, pressing down with the weight of unbearable loss. The shadow's face remained obscured, but there was something familiar about its form, a reflection of himself wrapped in darkness. "You can't save them," the shadow hissed, voice coated with an icy calm. "You can't save yourself." Jason flinched, feeling trapped between the coffee table's allure and the shadow's grasp. The specter in front of him was powerful, feeding off every flickering doubt. He wrestled with the thought: was he truly the hero, or was he the next in line for despair? "No!" he screamed, tearing away from its grip, causing a momentary flicker of surprise in the shadow. The energy surged again, urgent and frantic, pulling at the edge of his awareness. "There is no way out, Jason," it growled, looming closer. "You must choose. Darkness or oblivion." He felt the shadows tighten around him, squeezing like a noose. In that moment, clarity hit him. This was more than survival. If he faltered now, he wouldn't be the only one to suffer. Looking back toward the table, the chaotic images of Emily and Lily flickered violently, almost pleading for him to act out. A burst of resolve coursed through him. "I won't let you take me, or them." He lunged forward, grasping the table's edge. Inside, a maelstrom swirled, desperate to ensnare him. Jason could feel his essence merging, body tingling as the light flashed brighter, competing against the suffocating shadow. "Light is a trap." The shadow screeched, and for a brief moment, the room went utterly still. Seizing the chance, Jason shouted, "You're not real! You're a lie!" With that declaration, Jason plunged his hand deeper into the pulsing light. Energy exploded outward, spilling into the room like liquid fire, and he felt the shadow waver, its form flickering uncertainly. Was this the key to breaking its hold? As the luminous glow engulfed him, Jason braced himself, ready for the fallout. Heat surged, shattering the silence of despair, but the darkness roared back, more furious than ever, threatening to choke out the light before he could fully grasp its power. What he didn't expect was a sudden jolt. The room spun, colors blending into a kaleidoscope of horror and hope. In that dizzying moment, Jason felt echoes of memories, laughing, crying, then chilling silence. The pull between light and shadow intensified, and just as he thought he could separate them, he heard a voice breathlessly close, a whisper against his ear, "Jason. You are not alone." But who was it? His pulse quickened. Was he truly unraveling the mystery, or was this just the beginning of a terror far worse than he could imagine? The swirling chaos faded, but Jason's heartbeat pounded on. He could feel the remnants of that light, sizzling under his skin, a stark contrast to the cold grasp of the shadow lingering just beyond his vision. He expected the world around him to settle, to reveal clarity, but it only grew darker. "Jason," the voice was clearer now, yet it sent a chill shooting down his spine. A familiar figure lurked at the edge of his sight, cloaked in darkness, its features obscured. He stumbled backward, but the walls closed in, taunting him, forcing him to confront the apparition that danced in the dark. "This isn't real," he yelled, but doubt crept in, gnawing at the edges of his resolve. "You can't be." The figure stepped into the flicker of light, still fighting against the shadow, revealing the silhouette of someone he knew. It was Emily. But her face looked strained, twisted by despair, her eyes hollow like dark wells pulling him deeper. "Why are you doing this?" he pleaded, voice wavering. "I'm trying to save you." "It's too late, Jason," she whispered, her voice trailing off as if it was being pulled away into the void. "You can't save anyone. You must choose." Suddenly, the laughter echoed again, insidious and relentless. It wasn't just Emily's voice. It was a chorus of those he loved, suffocated beneath layers of darkness. Each laugh grated against his mind, a reminder of failure echoing in his thoughts. Jason felt the energy from the table pulsing rhythmically, competing against the envelopment of despair. The shadowy figure loomed closer, and fear crawled up his spine, tightening his chest. He couldn't let it get to him. Not now. "Get out of my head!" he shouted, slamming his palms against his temples as if he could block out the horror. For a moment, everything felt distant, the laughter, the grief, even the shadow itself. He closed his eyes, focusing on the warmth of the light, but it began to dim, flickering dangerously like a candle caught in a storm. "Jason, wake up!" Emily's voice cut through the air, sharper now. "You have to fight. They aren't real. It's a trick." She was right. Desperation surged within him. He couldn't let the memories drown him. "I won't let you take me!" he screamed. Summoning every ounce of willpower, Jason thrust himself forward into the heart of the table, diving deep into the chaotic light. It ripped through him, a torrent of energy flooding every cell, filling him with heat and purpose. but the darkness reacted violently. "Fool!" it shrieked, contorting with rage, shadows swirling with ferocity. Jason could feel cold bow rising in his throat as he braced for the impact. "Let go!" he growled, feeling the conflicting forces inside him coiling tighter, threatening to tear him apart. He reached out, connecting with the essence of the light, and chaos exploded in a burst of brilliance, pushing back against the inky mass. The shadows writhed and twisted, then suddenly, the laughter stopped. An eerie silence settled around him. For a heartbeat, Jason thought he had won, that he had forced the shadow into submission. But then the whisper returned, softer and more menacing. "You think this is victory?" There's always a price to pay before Jason could react. Shadows surged forward, enveloping him again, dragging him down into a deeper abyss. Cold tendrils snaked through his limbs, freezing him in place. Panic surged, clawing at his throat as he gasped. Was there truly a way out of this madness? Or would he sacrifice his very soul in attempts to save Emily and Lily? In that harrowing moment, the last remnants of the light flickered, as he felt the truth he had to confront. Who was the true enemy? The shadow, or the darkness within himself? As the warmth faded, Jason screamed into the void, feeling the icy grip of despair tightening around him. And in that darkness, the whispered warning echoed back, laced with dread. "You will find out." What awaited him in that uncharted territory of shadows? Would salvation be possible, or would he become a prisoner of the darkness forever? The grasp of the cold tendrils tightened further, dragging Jason deeper into the abyss. Panic thrummed through every fiber of his being. It felt as if his heart might drop out of his chest. He clawed at the darkness, his hands racing through empty air, but it was relentless, a whirlpool swallowing him whole. The whisper grew louder, almost mocking him. "What will you give to escape? Everything has a price." His thoughts swirled in a chaotic dance. How many times had he felt powerless? The darkness seemed to sense his anguish, pushing harder against him, squeezing until his breath came in short gasps. "Leave me alone!" he screamed, but the shadows only tightened their grip, choking his voice to a muffled croak. Then, in an instant, the weight of the shadows dissipated like smoke in the air. He fell, a drop into a void where the light had long ceased to exist. When he hit the ground, it was soft, almost as if he landed on something alive. The sensation sent horror rippling through him. Jason forced himself to sit up, heart racing, sweat cascading down his brow. As he blinked into the murky darkness, shapes began to materialize around him, emerging from a murky haze. Faces, distorted faces, swirling in and out of focus. Emily's face merged with Lily's, twisted in expressions of terror. They reached out with gaunt hands that faded to nothing before they could touch him. Their mouths moved, silently pleading. "Jason!" They chorused, their words echoing in his mind. He staggered to his feet, fear clawing at his throat. "What do you want from me?" he shouted as his voice bounced off the unseen walls, swallowed by the enveloping blackness. A guttural laugh erupted from the shadows, echoing out as if the very darkness itself was mocking him. "They want you to choose. Save one, lose the other, no." Jason snapped back. His eyes darted around, frantic for an escape. "You can't make me choose. This is your reality now. This is your truth." A shriek of defiance erupted from his chest. How long could this go on? How deep did the shadows go? He could feel his grip on sanity wavering, teetering on a precipice, ready to plunge into madness. The air thickened, pressing against him, and he could hear the emotions tangled in the cries of Emily and Lily. Fear, anger, despair all merging into a terrifying cocktail. Each murmur twisted like a knife in his chest, worming its way into memories he wished to forget. "Just let me go," he begged, but his voice was a shadow of itself. The darkness pulsed, reacting vehemently to his despair. More figures emerged, friends he had failed, loved ones he'd lost. Each face a reminder of every choice he had made, every wrong turn. Each a specter haunting him, rifling through his soul, demanding a declaration. "Choose!" They howled in unison, drowning him in a tidal wave of guilt and grief. "Choose now, or face the consequences." Jason staggered back, fighting against the rushing tide of voices. I can't! Desperation clung to him like a shroud, heavy and suffocating. He felt the pull of the dark, the relentless pressure urging him forward. But deep within him, a spark ignited. I want to let you control me! He roared, forcing his will against the shadows. Light flickered again from somewhere deep within, a beacon cutting through the murk. He grasped for it, feeling its warmth cradle him, but it remained just out of reach. As he fought against the shadows wrapping around his limbs, he heard it again, the whisper, now more enticing, more personal. It's simple, you know the answer. The truth hung like a noose, constricting around his throat. But in that moment, Jason looked deeply within himself. Was this darkness truly the enemy? Or was it the fear of facing himself? His breath quickened, heart hammering as he faced the choice looming before him. In that moment of clarity, armed with raw determination, he whispered to the shadows, I choose to fight. No matter what it costs. The laughter morphed into a shriek, rage and disbelief surging like thunder through the dark. Jason felt energy swirl within him, building like a storm as he prepared for the ultimate confrontation. What would the darkness do when it realized he wouldn't back down? What horrors awaited him as the abyss retaliated, ready to unleash all it held? Jason, it hissed, fury in its voice. You really think you can win? And as the shadows enveloped him in their fury, Jason braced himself for the unimaginable. The shadows writhed around Jason, their anger pulsing like a heartbeat. He felt them thicken, coiling tighter with each taunted breath he took. He braced himself, adrenaline coursing through his veins as the power within him ignited. This was no longer just survival, the stakes escalated beyond himself. Enough! Jason bellowed, pushing against the darkness, summoning the light inside. The void hesitated. For a fleeting moment, silence fell like a blanket, wrapping him in an eerie calm. Then, the stillness shattered. A deafening roar erupted, shaking the very essence of his courage. Shadows leapt out, hurling themselves at him, a black wave crashing down on a fragile shore. Jason raised his arms, palms open in defiance, channeling every ounce of fury, every memory of hope. I will not be defeated! For a heartbeat, the air crackled, brightening in flashes as energy surged forth. The darkness hissed, retreating as if burned, revealing paths and faces that warped and twisted, their mouths moving like puppets without strings. Jason glimpsed Lily, her face a mask of anguish. He could almost hear her voice. Jason, please! She pleaded, just barely audible, swallowed by the chaos swirling around him. Shut up! It felt good to roar back, to reclaim some semblance of power. He could not be dragged into the depths of despair when his choices could carve a way out, when he could fight for what was right. With every ounce of will, Jason shifted his focus. He needed to cut through their noise and get to the heart of the darkness. If you're going to play games with me, let us play. He concentrated. The glow inside him flared and expanded, mixing with the shadows, an unstable dance of light and dark. Suddenly, the affronting figures recoiled as if stunned. Jason sensed the shift. This was his moment. He surged forward, vaulting into the unknown just ahead. Branching paths appeared, flanked by the fantastical manifestations of his fears. He raced down one path, courageous steps bringing new visions, flashes of Emily's laughter, moments from simpler times that chipped away at the darkness' grasp. He could feel the shadows pursuing, their breath hot at his neck, but he propelled himself forward through sheer will. Face me! He shouted, the challenge resounding against the walls of his mind. You'll not get my soul today! Emboldened by clarity, he watched as the shifting darkness twisted, its weight of despair transforming into a thick mishmash of uncertainty, flickering like a dying flame. Jason reached a clearing where he saw more faces merging, some blurred with time, others fresh and vivid. But behind them loomed a figure larger than the rest, its features obscured in metal and darkness. What are you? He shouted, grappling with fear as he felt its chilling presence. Panic washed over him. Through the confusion, the entity spoke, a voice both deep and seductive. I am the architect of your worst nightmares. I feed on choices, every dilemma, every hesitation. And you have much yet to give. Jason felt an icy hand wrap around his heart. Waves of terror crashed against his mind. The urge to flee throbbed through him, but then he remembered Lily, Emily, the others. You wouldn't take anything from me. I choose my path. The air crackled heavily, tension brewing as the figure stumbled, caught off guard. In that moment, Jason realized he didn't just have to confront the darkness, he needed to confront himself. He took a deep breath, ready to strike. I choose to let go of the fear that binds me. With those words, the light within him surged more fiercely than ever before, expanding to cover the blanketing shadows, ripping away their hold. The dark figure recoiled, screeching a sound that sent echoes reverberating through the abyss. But as powerful as the light grew, it was still a flickering flame in an ocean of black. Darkness lunged, the tendrils reaching out, snatching at him. And then, just as hope held out its trembling hand, Jason felt the ground beneath his feet give way, dropping into an abyss beyond even his darkest imagination. What lay below? Were there more horrors waiting to ensnare him? The echoes of despair screamed aloud, mingled with the whisper of what he hadn't yet faced. Jason, is this your end? And, as he plunged into uncertainty, he couldn't help but wonder, was this truly his battle to win, or just the beginning of something even more horrifying? The fall felt endless, a void that engulfed him, chills slicing through his very being as darkness embraced him. Jason's mind raced, thoughts flickering madly like a strobe light. He struggled to focus, to breathe as he fell deeper, lost momentarily in a chasm of dread. Then, without warning, he hit the ground. The impact jarred him, pain radiating through his body. He scrambled to his feet, heart hammering in his chest. Around him, the atmosphere felt thick, suffocating. A shroud of black mist curled at his ankles, creeping up like relentless fingers grasping to hold him down. The air was stale, infused with the weight of voices long silenced. Jason squinted through the dimness, trying to make sense of his surroundings. He was in a cavernous expanse, walls slick with moisture and lined with grotesque shapes that writhed and whispered. The shadows twisted, forming faces that twisted into grins of mockery. Their intentions were clear, they were hungry. "Run!" cried a high-pitched voice that pierced through the murmurs. It sounded familiar, sending a chill up his spine. "Don't stop. You can't let them take you." Jason turned abruptly, breath hitching. "Emily?" he called out, hope puncturing through his panic. But all that greeted him was a mocking echo, ricocheting off the damp stone. The shadows, now emboldened by his fear, thickened around him. They swirled and swarmed like a violent storm, obscuring the exit. Every path seemed to merge into one confusing blur. Jason felt the pull, the lure of despair clawing at him. Every whispered name felt like a knife, each one a reminder of what he stood to lose. "Face your fears," the voice commanded again, echoing through the cavern, merging with the darkness. It wasn't just a call, it was a demand, stirring something deep within. The figure from before the architect of his nightmares was somewhere close, pulling strings unseen. "I won't give in!" Jason shouted, but his voice wavered. The shadows responded with a low growl, resonating with malice. He sprinted forward, heart racing as he plunged deeper into the shadows, adrenaline pumping. He knew he had to focus, had to find the light within him again before the darkness consumed him whole. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath his feet. Cracks snaked across the stone, revealing more depths to the cavern. He leapt aside, barely avoiding a sudden chasm that opened like a hungry mouth. The darkness whispered promises of power, seducing with an invitation to embrace the chaos. "Give in, Jason," it hissed like a serpent. "You don't have to fight anymore. Just accept it. All you need is to surrender." Panic surged anew as he shoved against it. "Never!" His voice was defiant, shaking yet firm. But in that moment of resolve, flashes of his life surged around him, memories of laughter with friends, quiet evenings with family, love shared with Lily. Each vision waged war within him, filling his mind with both warmth and despair. He staggered back, suddenly overwhelmed. "Jason! Remember who you are!" The voice came again, this time clearer. Emily? He whispered, desperation coating his throat. The shadows recoiled slightly, and he felt a flicker of hope igniting. This was not just a fight against an external force. It was a battle for his heart, for his memories, for those he loved. He forced himself to recall the warmth of their presence, to draw strength from the love that anchored him. Emboldened, Jason pushed against the shadows again. You can't have me! As he projected his will, a pulse of light shattered through the darkness. But the architect of nightmares was not finished. The figure emerged, massive and blurring the line between shadow and form, its face now discernible an unsettling eyeless mask, a cruel smirk twisting its features. You think you can win? It sneered, the darkness around it thickening like ink spilling through water. With a flick of its hand, the shadows lunged toward him, a wave of rage and despair crashing against his newly formed light, and just before they could engulf him, Jason took a deep breath. I won't run anymore. In that moment, he felt something shift. The light flared, pushing against the darkness, illuminating the cavern in bursts. But could it hold against the determined tide? Before he could find out, the world shattered around him into fragments, sharp and bright against the shadows, as his vision blurred. What would remain of him in that fleeting moment? Did the light hold the power to save him, or was surrender inevitable? The dark figure laughed as Jason fought against the tide, and in the chaos of confusion, he couldn't help but wonder what awaited him beyond the veil, if he gave in to the shadows? Jason's mind spun as the shadows lunged, swirling with chaos and despair. He clenched his fists, summoning every ounce of his willpower to focus on the flickering light within him. The warmth surged, reminding him of love, laughter, and the fleeting joy of family. It was his lifeline. Emily! Lily! His voice broke through the overwhelming noise, echoing in defiance. I will not let you take me! He felt the shadows recoil for a second, a moment of hesitation, and in that split second of clarity, he caught a glimpse of the faces he loved, flashes of joy that grounded him. In the depths of despair, a fire ignited fiercely inside him. What do you want from me? He howled at the dark figure, feeling the energy crackle in the atmosphere. The figure lingered but did not answer, its eyeless gaze piercing through the shadows like a knife. You want to play games? Let us play. Jason charged forward, feeling the pulsating energy vibrate through him. He focused all anguish, all love, every choice he made ultimating in this moment. He ran into the heart of the chaos, pushing aside twisting fears, as the walls of despair closed in from every direction. Fight! He howled again, determination flooding through his veins. The shadows writhed, gnashing their teeth, a tidal wave crashing against him, but he pushed back with unyielding force. I will not yield! Jason cried as the light flared brighter, illuminating murky corners of the cavern. Every flicker reminded him of laughter shared with Emily, evenings spent reading to Lily, every moment that made life worth fighting for. The shadows screeched, and in their fury, the dark figure glared down at him, menacing but faltering. Your light is a folly! It cannot withstand the darkness. It hissed, the laughter growing more derisive, mocking his resolve. But Jason took a deep breath, recalling that the darkest nights brought forth the brightest dawns. Maybe, but I refuse to surrender, he thundered, uncurling his fingers toward the pulsing warmth of his inner light. A radiant explosion erupted as he flooded every shadow with the essence of his love. The relationships he cherished became shields, pushing against the advancing darkness. The shadows thrashed in desperation, yet the more Jason fought internally, the brighter his light glowed. Stop! He commanded, forcing the darkness to recoil once more. You have no power over me! And finally he understood. The true battle rested not just in the external forces but within himself, the fears that haunted him and the love that sustained him. A cacophony of screams erupted as the shadows collapsed away from him, retreating in fear, swirling frantically around the cavern before dissipating like smoke. The dark figure staggered back, shock painted across its twisted face. No! It howled, fury bursting forth in an unholy wail that shook the very foundations of that nightmarish realm. But Jason bore down, every ounce of strength fortified by memories that would not be extinguished. As the shadows fell, he saw them, Emily and Lily, their faces brightening with warmth that broke the cold of the cavern. The air thickened for one unbearable moment. "Dad!" Lily shouted, her voice cutting through the remnants of darkness. "Jason!" Emily cried, reaching toward him with arms unbound by shadow. Tears blurred his vision as he bolted toward them, ripping through the shreds of darkness that remained like a bursting dam. "I'm here!" he yelled, and in an instant, he enveloped them in an embrace as the warmth flooded his soul. The shadows fought back, remnants flickered like dying embers around them, but Jason held on, each heartbeat pulsing with a fierce promise. This was not only an escape. This was freedom. Together they formed a barrier, a brilliant light so radiant it shattered the last grasp of dark haunting them. "Follow me," he urged, his heart matching the cadence of theirs as they charged toward the flickering point of exit just beyond the chaos. "Hold on!" In one final surge, they burst past the threshold, breaking free into blinding light just as the darkness roared behind them. They tumbled onto the soft grass of their backyard, the familiar night sky sprawling above, speckled with stars, each twinkling like a beacon. Together they lay there, panting but whole, the haunted shadows dissolving into nothingness, their power shattered by the immense strength of love and choice. "It's over," Jason whispered, glancing at Emily and Lily, their faces still framed by the traces of fear but now graced with an undeniable light. "No, it's not just over," Emily replied softly, a new determination igniting in her eyes. "It's a rebirth." They held on to each other tightly, feeling relief seep slowly into their bones. The night no longer felt like a prison, but rather a pathway leading towards hope. The whispers now were sweet and inviting, telling of brighter tomorrows. With a slow nod, they all looked back toward their home. The shadows had been quelled, but Jason realized that life would always present choices light or dark. His heartbeat echoed a promise to always choose love. As the three huddled together beneath the stars, they whispered their plans for tomorrow, dreaming of long, joyous days ahead, days refusing to let shadows dictate their lives. Together they would conquer whatever challenges lay ahead. They were a family again, standing united against the unknown. You need to help our journey continue. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let others join in on this wild ride. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see this wrap up. Your support is everything.